clicker and I scored a 4 on my AP 2D art portfolio. To help further my growth as an artist, I want to analyze what I did right, what I could improve on, and what someone might want to think about going into AP 2D this year. Before I introduce my portfolio, I want to first describe what the AP 2D course requires. The AP course is split into 2 sections, which consist of the Sustained Investigation and the Selected Works. The Sustained Investigation is a, quote, section of your portfolio that should show a body of related works that demonstrate an inquiry-based sustained investigation of materials, processes, and ideas through practice, experimentation, and revision. Which essentially means that it's a group of works that are guided by a single thesis, theme, or whatever you want to call it. For the entire sustained investigation, you write 2 short paragraphs for the written section about your thesis, and you include a total of 15 works in the portfolio. And these 15 works don't have to be 15 separate works. They can be progress photos or related imagery, or whatever. But obviously you want to have a lot of work to display. And the selected works are 5 extra works that you include in your overall AP2D portfolio. The selected works can be connected to your sustained investigation, but they don't have to be, which is really helpful. I've got my dog here. My sustained investigation was guided by the idea of perception, and it had a recurring theme of mirrors. Throughout the sustained investigation, I explored how I perceive things, how people perceive things, how people perceive me, and how everyone perceives the world around them, which is a lot of the use of the word perceive, which I do find very annoying after a while. These are the questions asked in the written portion. How do we perceive ourselves, other people, and the world around us? Through this investigation of perception, I became fascinated with the visual effects of mirrors. Its repeating theme is used to create meaningful compositions in my work. Within these pieces, I created dramatic feelings that could be perceived by any viewer. I worked hard to instill emotion into every work. In this process, I also examined my own perceptions of art. By understanding how I see art as a whole, I was able to expand my body of work in a way I never thought possible before. A lot of my work has changed direction during the course of its creation. I'm constantly reworking and tweaking my ideas as they are formed, even as a project is coming to a close. Many of my ideas require the use of mediums I've never tried before, like wood, mirror, and glass tools. I quickly learned to work with my hands, take my time, and practice before jumping into a new project. With each new medium, I was encouraged to explore it further in my next piece, creating another line of connection between all my work. To be entirely honest, I wrote these very close to the deadline of the portfolio, and I don't mean like totally super close, but I finished writing them about 3 days before it was due, so I didn't have a lot of time to revise what I was saying. I could have better expanded on what I was trying to say with my work and how each work was connected to the theme more specifically. I was very vague about it. As much as I would like my work to speak for itself, I have a lot to say about it, and I think the line of connection is kind of vague considering the vast mediums I used. Keeping the word limit of 600 characters was by far the hardest part of the written evidence. I have a lot to say, and I wanted to say it. 600 characters is very, very short. It is very difficult to describe what I wanted to describe. I could write a whole 7 paragraphs about just one of my works. Like, I'm really passionate about everything that I create. But regardless of my criticisms, I do feel that my explanations are still pretty decent in explaining the connection between my work and my idea of perception and what I mean by that, and that I'm thinking about perception in exploring these new mediums in my works. I feel like my topic was a pretty interesting one as well, which I think does help because I found it interesting, so it shows in my work that I found it interesting, but I think overall perception is a pretty visited one, especially for teenage girls. But that's enough about the writing, let's talk about the actual art, the portfolio. Work 1. It's a reference photo for work 2, in which I explored lighting using photos on an iPhone. Work number 2. A 9-inch by 11-inch on acrylic on paper. It's a self-portrait exploring femininity while examining how mirrors can be used for composition. Work 3. A gestural sketch for my charcoal still life. Work 4. The midway point of my still life. Work 5. 30 inches by 42 inches. Charcoal and Conte on paper used to shade a quartz candlestick and its reflection. Work 6. The beginning stages and sketching of my printmaking work. Work 7. Silkscreen fabric ink onto a large muslin tapestry. I had many issues with printing, so I cut it up. Work 8. 22-inch by 52-inch by 3-inch deep. Silkscreen fabric ink on muslin, using wooden dowel, thread, and metal shower curtain for hanging. I cut the tapestry into increasing sizes and mounted them on dowels to hang. Work 9. 24-inch by 12-inch, small pieces of painted glass, fired and UV glued to a larger piece in a checked pattern. Work 10. 36 inches by 12 inches. Acrylic painted directly on mirror, in a pattern replicated from work 9, but more resolved. Work 11. The first sketches/ideas behind my biggest project, the box. Work 12. Built out of 4 sheets of plywood and 2x4s with an opening for a door. Painted as a base for a mosaic. Work 13. 96 inches by 48 inches. I painted the outside of the box with a starburst pattern that loosely references the inside. Work 14. 96 inches by 48 inches by 48 inches. Or 4 foot by 4 foot by 8 foot. I used liquid nails to adhere cut mirrors in a mosaic over the painted background. Work 15. Another photo of the inside of the box. Let's start with what I think I did right. Something AP is really looking for when grading portfolios is a range of exploration, and within my works there's a large variety of mediums and different ways that I explore my theme of perception. I also have what I believe to be a very high quality of works in these different mediums. I spent a lot of time on these in order to make them their best. I also included a lot of progress photos, and it's a good and a bad thing. Another thing that AP looks for in their grading is the progression of works and techniques. It shows what you're learning through your exploration. And while this is a good thing to include, I definitely included too many progress photos. It was less space for me to show off more of my work and how I was exploring my thesis. I already dipped a little bit into it, but here's where I think I went wrong. Most of what I think I did wrong is not within the works themselves, besides one, and I'll get to that in a second. It lies more in the presentation of my works and the short number of them. I'm a very slow artist, and my last work in the portfolio, the box, took me 4 to 5 months to finish. While I was working on this, it slowed down a lot of the work on my other projects, and I was only able to complete like 5 total that were related to my sustained investigation. 5 total works is not enough for a sustained investigation. At the very least, I would recommend like 7 works to put in this same sustained investigation. It makes a more full body of work. The lack of extra work in my portfolio left it feeling sparse and stretched thin. Another thing that might have knocked me off a point is the fact that most of my work pushes the boundaries of what 2D art actually is. The box in particular, while a very impressive and impactful work, in my opinion, is not necessarily a 2D work. It's literally a 4 foot by 4 foot by 8 foot box that is a definition of a 3D work. But, it's my pride and joy, and I had to include it. I do think that there is a very 2D aspect about it, because when you look at each individual wall, it has its own design, but the fact that it is a 3D object probably knocked me off a point. The photos I chose as well to describe it were not the most 2D-like representations of what it was. And that's where I think I went wrong in my sustained investigation. But let's talk about the selected works. Work 1. 25 inches by 19 inches. The idea was representing the feeling of being pulled in every direction and the stress of being busy. My materials were paper, yarn, and a wooden frame. Work number 2, the Baxio, which is made with wood, interior paint, mirror, and it was created as a life-size self-portrait for my sustained investigation. Work 3 is the same one from my sustained investigation. Work 4, 16 inches by 16 inches, made with glass and glass powder. The idea was to play with movement using glass powder. I made it by covering a glass pane with glass powder and pushing divots into the surface. Fired and slumped. Work 5, 24 inches by 30 inches, made in watercolor. Idea: experimenting with different watercolor techniques. Using a blind line composition, I experimented using different shades of yellow watercolor. I personally think my selected works are pretty good. They show off more of my actual 2D work. I was going to include one more, but video file formats are not allowed on AP2D, which was a huge disappointment to me after I made this handmade stop motion animation where I cut out these individual pieces of paper. It took me like so long to make. And it was a really, really cool piece, but it was an animation, which isn't a format that's included in 2D, even though it was a 2D animation. I really would have loved to include it in my portfolio, so AP, if you see this, please God, let 2D animations in your portfolios, because I think they can really enhance a portfolio and show off a student's abilities really well. The only qualm I have with my selected works is my descriptions. In the selected works, you have a section where you write the idea of the work, and since I did that also on such a short timeline, I feel like it could have used some more revision, and I didn't get a chance to do that. Here's 5 things I would recommend to somebody going into AP 2D this year. 1. Decide on a topic early. Deciding can be really difficult, and you want to pick one you really like. There are a lot of great resources online to help you with your ideas. Here are some websites and videos I used. But the sooner you have a topic decided, the sooner you can start generating ideas for future work. It's really helpful later on if you have a bank of ideas you can pull from. 2. Know what you need. Start planning out where your works fit into your portfolio as soon as you can. You want to know how many works you might need. I recommend 7, as well as 5 extra for the selected works. Start planning out where your works fit into your portfolio as soon as you can. And especially start writing your written section at least a month before the deadline. Revision is key, which brings me to my next point: revise. This is something I did a lot of with my art, and I would fully recommend to anyone in AP2D. When you get tired of a work or frustrated or even feel as though the work is missing something, give it a few days and then come back to it and revise. You want your work to feel as complete and developed as possible. Plus, after leaving the project for a few days, you might come up with some crazy twist to turn into an even better work. Don't feel too bad about remaking projects either. You want to put forth the best version of your work as possible. 4. As you revise, make sure to take pictures. Take so many pictures. On your phone is completely fine. Progress photos not only allow you to look back on where you've come from, but are also great to include within your portfolio. That process is impressive. Show it off. Number 5, push your own boundaries. Not only is this good for the AP, but it's also just good for the artist's soul. Try out new mediums. Try out old mediums in a new way. Explore art to the fullest that you can. Get out of your comfort zone. Sometimes you'll find that old talents lend a hand in creating new ones. That's all I have to say about my AP2D experience. To see my full official portfolio, you can click the link in the description, or you can find it along with my other works on my website, which will also be linked. For more updates about my art, you can also follow my Instagram. Thanks for watching.